is God? Moses once asked God how to respond if the sons of Israel wanted to know his name. God answered, saying, I am who I am. And he said, thus you shall say to the sons of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Exodus chapter 3 and verse 14. Among a people who knew God, even that name said a lot. How would we today go about explaining who God is to someone that had no prior knowledge? How would you establish God's identity? Think about it. This is a challenge even today, but it was certainly a problem faced by the Christians in the first century as they began to preach to the Gentiles. Fortunately for us, we have access to the Bible, and we can see how they approached this problem. In Acts chapter 14, we find Paul and Barnabas in Lystra. There they encounter a lame man and heal him. When they do that, the people are amazed and begin to worship them as Greek gods. But Paul redirects their worship to God. In Acts chapter 14, verse 15, we find Paul saying, why are you doing these things? We are also men of the same nature as you, and preach the gospel to you, that you should turn from these vain things to a living God, who made the heaven and the earth and the sea and all that is in them. Similarly, in Acts chapter 17, Paul is now in Athens. He's walking about the city and he sees a number of many different idols. One in particular catches his attention. It is an idol dedicated to an unknown deity. So Paul cleverly used this as an opportunity to define the one true God. In Acts chapter 17, verses 23 to 25, Paul said, for while I was passing through and examining the objects of your worship, I also found an altar with this inscription, to an unknown God. Therefore, what you worship in ignorance, this I proclaim to you. The God who made the world and all things in it, since he is Lord of heaven and earth, does not dwell in temples made with hands, nor is he served by human hands as though he needed anything, since he himself gives to all people life and breath and all things. What do both of these accounts have in common? How did Paul tell who God is? He did so by identifying God through his role as the creator, as the author of the universe and everything in it. How else? We know God through what God has done. The psalmist said in Psalm 19 and verse 1, the heavens are telling of the glory of God, and their expanse is declaring the work of his hands. How strong is this identity link? The case for God as creator is not superficial. It is compelling. It is an identity link that we are expected to recognize. In Romans chapter 1, verses 18 through 20, Paul wrote, for the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who suppress the truth in unrighteousness, because that which is known about God is evident within them, for God made it evident to them. For since the creation of the world, his invisible attributes, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood through what has been made, so that they are without excuse. The truth is, God has made himself evident to humankind, and he did so through what he has made. God's identity and divine attributes are revealed through the existence of the physical realm and everything in it. This vast, fully functioning, well-balanced, complex universe is evidence for the need and the existence of an almighty supernatural creator, one capable of designing and creating and sustaining all of these things. But in spite of this, some suppressed the truth in unrighteousness, according to Romans chapter 1 and verse 18. So how can this truth be suppressed? Generally speaking, there are three ways. First of all, you can simply misplace it. And by that I mean acknowledge evidence for the creation, but turn right around and give credit and worship to idols or other false gods. This is what was taking place in Lystra and in Athens, and we would call this idolatry. Secondly, you can deny it. Deny the very existence of God, and in so doing, you are rejecting any notion of the creation. This is a view of atheism. Thirdly, you can ignore it. Here you give no regard to any evidence for intelligent design and deliberately choose to refuse to even consider the possibility of creation. Instead, you look solely to materialism or naturalism to explain the existence of our physical universe. This assumes an intelligent being did not create the physical universe and rejects, excludes, or discounts any supernatural explanation for its existence. This is an assault on the identity and role of God. If our goal is to pursue the truth about origins, then common sense and fairness demands that we carefully consider how God has revealed himself through the things he has made. To do otherwise is to throw out objectivity and figuratively throw out the baby with the bathwater. No one should be afraid of the truth. Finally, note there are consequences for our actions and beliefs. Paul warned us about God's wrath in Romans chapter 1, verses 18 and 19. The evidence for God that's found in the creation is so strong and clearly visible that humankind has no excuse for rejecting it. All of us are accountable for knowing God through his identity and role as the Creator. Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. Now we know who God is, but what is God that he could do these things? That will be the subject of a future video. I hope you've gained understanding from this discussion. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe and check out my other videos. Remember, the truth transforms. For those interested in learning more, please go to my website at www.thetruthtransforms.com. There you'll find articles, podcasts, Bible study outlines, teaching resources, and links to my book and to my YouTube videos. My book, entitled A Debt I Cannot Pay, is a thorough study of God's plan to save his people. It's available from the publisher Westbow Press or from Amazon and any of the other online retailers.